All right, so today we are going to start by placing a mark on a specific place on my paper here. So I'm just gonna put a dot, say right here. And we are going to call that letter A. And I am actually using a marker so that you can see this clearer, but I would want you to be using a pencil so that you would use the proper tools. So this is what we would call a point. So we would label this, I could label this as point A, and it is a very specific place on the paper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mark another point. And I'm going to, now I can't mark that one with label point A because point A can't be in two places at the same time. So I'm going to label this one point B. So a point is a very specific place on a piece of, or in space here. And what we're going to do is we are going to connect the two dots. Now this is where you need your straight edge. So I have my straight edge here, and I'm going to line up very carefully the two dots, and I'm going to use a different color here. And I'm going to draw from point A to point B. And we now have another vocabulary term. And so this is, well, let's see. It has a beginning and it has an end. So it has a definite beginning and a definite end. And it looks like a line. However, it's not a line. It's a line segment. So I'm going to write that line segment, and we would say this is line segment AB. Now you might see it with the capital letters A and B, and I forgot to mention that we use capital letters to make our marks. So I could say line segment AB, or you might just see the symbol on top of the A and the B. So that is our first thing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put a third point on our paper. And I'm going to put it up here. And I don't want it on A or B or on that line segment anywhere. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect, I'm going to label this with a C. And I'm going to connect point A with point C. But this time, I am actually going to make it longer than the point. So I'm going to go through the points like that, and I used a different color here. And what happens is I'm going to go ahead and put an arrow on this end and an arrow on this end. And so now that is our definition of a line. So now I have line, and we would call that line AC, or I could, and I would also write it as AC, and I would put the little arrow on top of those letters. So I want you to think about, how is line segment AB different from line segment A, or line rather, AC? So how are those two different from one another? And we could say, well, one's longer than the other, one's shorter than the other. But I really want you to see that AB, line segment AB, has a beginning and an end, where line AC, we mark it with the arrows to indicate that it will go on forever. If I were to extend this to the left and extend this to the upper right, they would go on forever. So that is the difference between a line and a line segment. A segment is part of a line. All right, so now we're going to, so we've got our point, we've got our line segment, we've got our line. We're going to draw another dot on our paper, or another point. So now I have this point, and again, I'm not going to label it A or B or C. I'm going to use a third or a fourth letter, sorry. We're going to label it with a D. And I am going to use a different color here, get my straight edge. But this time I'm not going to extend it past both points. I'm going to start it at point B, and I'm going to go through point D here and extend that in that direction. So now it has a beginning, and it goes on in one direction really forever. And we would call this a ray. And this would be ray B, D, or I could use the symbol BD and I would just draw an arrow with one direction on it. So I can write it different ways, and I want you to be able to see that. And what we've done is we have created something here, and I want you to notice that I could call it, I'm going to back up here for a second. I'm actually going to put I'm going to put it right here. Another dot. I'm going to label this one with the letter E. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start at where B ends, and I'm going to extend it through the letter point E here. And so what we have done is we've created our fifth vocabulary word, and that is an angle. And so we have, actually I have two angles here, but we're going to talk about this one right here. And this could either be called angle D, B, E, or we would call it angle E, B, D. They are both the same. Now what I want you to recognize here is that both of them have something in common, and that is that middle letter. And this is how we name angles. Now I could name it this way, or if I were to use a shortened version like up there, I could just draw a little angle and angle D, B, E. And again, I use those capital letters. All right, so we have angle DBE or angle EBD. It refers to the same angle here. However, the letter B is the thing that is in the same place. And if you look at our angle here, the B is in the middle. It connects the two rays. So we have ray BD and ray BE, and they have this common endpoint right here. And that is what we call a vertex. And I'm going to go ahead and write that. Vertex. Is a common endpoint that both rays share. So we have those 6 vocabulary terms. So that's our first part. So again, let's review. We have point A. A point is a very specific place. we have a line segment. It has a beginning and it has an end. We have a line where it has no beginning. We would say this has no beginning because it's going to go on forever in one direction, and it's also going to go on forever in the opposite direction. And that's important that they are in opposite directions. Thirdly, we've got, this would be 1, 2, 3. The fourth term is our array. An array has a beginning and it has no end. And I kind of like to think of this as a sun ray, a ray of sunshine. It has a beginning, which is the sun itself, and it goes on forever into space. So it starts with the sun, it goes on forever into space. And our fifth term is our angle. And so we have angle DBE, or we could reverse the letters and call it EBD, and we could write it either way. I could put the other one as EBD here. And then the common endpoint right here is the vertex. Okay, so that's the first part that I want to talk about. So I'm going to get rid of that. And for this next part, we are going to start, we're going to just simply sketch a rectangle. So I'm going to do that off camera real quick here. And there we go. So I have a rectangle. And it's not perfect. And we will be getting into what exactly makes up a rectangle in the future at a future lesson. So now I'm going to label the corners, or what we would call corners, but we now have that new vocabulary term, and they are now going to be called a vertex. So I'm going to call it A, B, C, and D. So I could refer to vertex A because if I were to pretend that this is a ray beginning at A and extending past B, it would go on forever. Or A and go past D, a ray would make up this side and that would go on forever. So these are really the two sides of an angle. And so think about this. How many line segments do we have that make up a rectangle? How many vertices? And that's the plural form of the vertex. So vertex is singular, vertices is plural. And we talked about the rays making up angles, and of course we could also, what we're saying is we can make a ray or an angle from two line segments. So I'm thinking about, well, I could name the line segments. How many line segments could you name here? Hopefully you're thinking, well, I have line segment AB, I have line segment BC, line segment CD, and line segment DA. And so that completes the rectangle. And so these would be our line segments. And then we could also name some angles here. And so we have angle, we could say angle DAB, which is, I'm going to put a little 1 in the corner just to keep track of the angles that I'm doing. So we've got angle DAB. I could also have angle ABC, which that would be a number 2 here. I could have angle scratch that. We're going to have angle BCD, which is angle 3, and our fourth angle would be angle CDA, right here in this corner. All right. Now, the next section that I'm going to do is actually, I am going to go, excuse me, I'm going to go to your problem set. So we are going to do part of the problem set. I'm going to do part of the problem set together, and then you're going to complete the next one. So I actually have, if you remember in the first video, I have a student booklet of Module 4, which is our geometry unit here. And since we are in lesson 1, I'm going to open this up to lesson 1 here. Let me pull this over. So here it says, use the following directions to draw a figure in the box to the right. Draw 2 points, A and B. So if I drew an A and a B, and one of the things that I find very helpful is check them off as I'm doing them. So I've drawn 2 points, I've labeled them A and B. And then it says use a straight edge to draw line segment AB. And so that's where that line segment comes in here. So I'm going to go ahead and connect and I apply pressure to the ruler down so it doesn't move when I'm going through here. So we have line segment AB, so I've done that. So draw it, no, point letter C here. Draw a new point that is not on line segment AB and label it point C. So I could come down here, label it point C, and I've done that. And now it says draw line segment AC. So I'm going to go ahead and connect A to C. Done that. And notice as each step I'm doing, I'm checking it off so that I know I have completed it. And that's something that you should be doing as well. Letter E, draw a point not on AB or on AC and call it letter D. Okay. I'll draw another point here, and it said to call it letter D. So I've done that. Now it says construct CD, but if I notice, the line above the CD has 2 arrows, so they're wanting it to be, these are line segments, they're wanting CD to be a line. So I'm going to make sure that I go through C and D, and make sure that I put the arrows on the ends. So I have just constructed line CD. And it says, use the points that you've already labeled to name one angle. So I see 2 different angles that you could possibly name. And I'm going to actually leave that up to you to fill this in. So what you're going to do when you get done with the video is you're going to go ahead and you're going to do number 2 here in the box, and you're also going to continue on and do number 3 here, but I'm actually going to do this house first. We're going to do, because we can also identify some points on here. So it says observe the familiar figures below. Label some points on each figure. So I'm going to just pick some points. I'm going to say this corner, or this vertex is M, N, O, P, and Q. And so I have labeled some points, so I've done that. And letter B says, use those points to label and name representations of each of the following in the table below: a ray, a line segment, an angle, and extend segments to show lines and rays, because these are already line segments. So it says array. Well, I could make array out of N to M. I could extend this, and this is where that straight edge comes in handy. So if I have a beginning point of M and it goes through N, so ray MN, and it continues on through. The second one, a line. Where do I want to draw a line? I could draw a line really, and let's go the bottom here. So I'm going to extend that this way and make sure I put the arrows to indicate that it's a line. It goes on forever in opposite directions. So that would be line MQ, because those are the 2 points that are located on that line. Next, a line segment. Well, a line segment, any one of those, but because I've marked these, I'm actually going to use NP, which is kind of, if you think about it, it'd be the ceiling of the house here, NP. And I'm just going to put a line above that, and I don't have to put the points on. I'm just going to, it has a beginning and it has an end. And the last one is an angle. So I can pick any one of these angles. I'm going to go with angle, let's go NOP, which is the roof of the house there. And I could have picked, there's multiple angles here. I could have picked angle NMQ or PQM or ONP or NPO, any one of those angles. It's really your choice. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to continue on with the flash drive, and you're going to continue on. This is a compass rose, and so again, you have to put some of points on those, and then you're going to do exactly what I did, find them, and also if you're making a ray or a line, make sure that you mark them as they should be. All right, and so that is it for this lesson. Those are some familiar, or going to be familiar, terms. So the next thing for you to do is go ahead, complete number 2 here, finish number 3, and finish number 3, which is the flash drive and the compass rose. You can go ahead and do the extension too if you want to draw your own picture. And then the exit ticket, and we're going to do something a little different with the exit ticket today. You can complete it in here first. That would be a good thing to do, but you're going to be submitting that. There is a link in the assignment, and that when you click on it, it will take you to what looks like a quiz page, but it's not really a quiz page. We're just using one of the features of Canvas to do that. So there are questions in there. It's more of a multiple choice rather than a matching like this is. So, but it would be beneficial to go ahead and do it in here first, and then go ahead and do it online, so that when you submit it, I can see what you're doing. All right, so we have the work that we've done today. We've got all our vocabulary here, and I do have, and this is also written out in the assignments, I do have a page where you can write these out or print them out, and I have the definitions and examples of what I have here that you could glue in your math journal, or if you don't have a printer, you could write them out. Anything to help you remember these vocabulary terms. So we've done our vocabulary terms, we've identified some on a figure, and we've also done this part here. All right, that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll be looking at angles. So we'll be identifying some different angles. Until tomorrow.